Hey everyone, I'm Renee.
And I'm Gravity. And we're the authors of the books, What Do I Teach Readers Tomorrow? If you've been tuning into some of our other videos, the last video we made, we spoke about thin slicing, which is this idea that if we trust our gut instincts and we have some experience and we pay attention to that, then we actually only need small amounts of information to make really important decisions. And we threw out that challenge to everybody to pay attention to when you're sitting side by side with students, how often and how you can pay more attention to your gut instinct about what your students need next. And one of those decisions that we know is really important that we think about and ask ourselves is, what are the books that we want to put in front of our students, whether that's in our read aloud or shared reading or introduced to students to read independently. So in our fiction and our nonfiction book, we came up with some criteria, and we kind of thought about it like a Zagat guide for those of you who like to check out great restaurants. So what that means is we came up with 4 types of criteria. And one of those was just appeal. Is this going to be appealing to my particular group of students? And that might not be the same for every group of students. So thinking about your very specific kids that you work with. Another is whether or not it offers opportunities to develop empathy when it comes to reading fiction, and how important it is that that's not only a reading skill, but also a life skill. A third is representation, so making sure that we're not only choosing groups, books that have one group of people that we're showing, but that represents a wide variety of the human experience. And the fourth is accessibility. So is this a text my students can actually have access to that's not so far above their life stage or readability that they're just going to get lost? So we use those 4 criteria not as a hard and fast rule, but as a way to make decisions. So what are some of the favorites that you've been choosing recently, because some or all of those areas are really strong with that book, Renee?
Absolutely. I love books, so it's helpful to have kind of just like a quick little mini checklist.
Yep.
So this is a new one of my favorites. It was recommended to me by one of my former colleagues and friends. It's called Willow's Whisper by Lena Button. About a little girl who obviously she is a little slow to warm, and so she's really observant, and she uses a very soft voice and gets frustrated when she's not heard. And so by the end of the book, you can appreciate what she does. She creates herself a little tool, and the tool she creates gives her the confidence to find her voice. And so her students hear, her peers hear from her teacher hears from her. In the end, her classmates are so proud of her, they kind of cheer her on in the end. So I feel like for students who are a little slow to warm and they need to find their voice, this is great. But even for students who aren't, they can at least appreciate that students like Willow might be in their classroom.
Really opportunity to develop empathy for students who maybe are less vocal in the classroom, and how do we help draw them out?
Absolutely. Another favorite of mine is a collection of short stories called The First French Kiss by Adam Bagdasarian. And I would say you would want to read through this as a teacher to see some of the content if you're comfortable with it, but I feel like there's a lot of opportunity. It's Adam writing about, in a little bit memoirish style, of his experiences in his adolescent years.
And they're not all about French kissing.
Absolutely, yeah, bring that up. Cheers, just kidding. Yeah, even the title alone kind of applies. It might be for older students, for adolescent readers, but because it's a collection of short stories, you could read it as a teacher and find a story or 2 that you might want to present to students in a community read aloud. So I do like it because Adam is very dynamic, and so what he writes about are times where we've all felt and maybe hurt, especially in those middle school years when you're searching for belonging and identifying. And so I feel like it could be a great opportunity to get some great conversations going with students, and let them know that they're not alone in experiencing a lot of those adolescent moments.
Totally. And some of the short stories, like The Fight and My Side of the Story, aren't really about anything sexual like My First French Kiss.
Yes.
But still are about issues that adolescents would really care about.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I have one too. So one of my favorites is a book called Extra Yarn by Mac Barnett and illustrated by John Klassen, 2 of my favorites. The thing about this book, Extra Yarn, is I think there's so many layers to this text that you could read it with young students, and I've read it to 4- and 5-year-olds, but all the way up through, I've even read it with adults. And there's key scenes that you could debate about, like, did she make the right decision? It deals with lots of different social issues, or it's just a great story about a girl who likes to knit and what she does for her community. And so this is one of my favorites for many reasons, but I think it tells a story in a way that's quite unique, but still draws on fairy tales in a way that everyone can relate to.
Awesome. This week, download the criteria guide, and we'll also link the appendix of What Do I Teach Readers Tomorrow in our fiction book, where there's a lot of books that meet the criteria. It was hard for us to list a few because we love books and we're always gaining new books. So on that note, let us know through social media what your favorite teaching texts are. Maybe you use them for read aloud, and even what the hot reads are in your libraries right now, your classroom libraries. What are your students drawn to?
We love books so much, Renee, that we don't just read them, we also like to wear clothing with books on them. My lovely tights and your size, right? Well, you don't need to go that far. You know, we are looking forward to hearing about the books that have changed your and your students' lives, and which are the ones that you want to share with the rest of us. So have a great week, everyone.